Okay, so this is Module 1 talking about federalism, one of my favorite topics because it is looking at the foundation of America. And I realize that we have a lot of problems, but you realize that when America was founding, when it comes, there was something that preceded it, which is the Articles of Confederation. And there were many problems with the Articles of Confederation. The first problem that existed is that it couldn't pay its bills. After the British came and and America separated itself from Great Britain, we owed money to the French. How can America pay back the French when we didn't have a central bank? We had different money that was being dispersed everywhere. We had um, states that felt that they were individual countries who could partner up with additional countries. So the Federalists had a lot of problems because they didn't really want outside interference, such as France or Spain. And this is a real threat if you think about it, because France and Spain still had property within the United States. Mexico owned a lot of what's out west. You still had some of the French and Spanish influence down south. And so they really were thinking, this is not, we cannot have a broken system and no mechanism, to do basic things such as like war. How can you go to war? Which was a big problem because it was amazing to think how individuals, uh, which was the National Guard, are just individuals can decide to come together when they needed someone for military action and to fight against a country that was already credible and established, such as Great Britain. So, one of the major things is those were the two major functions. Also, we had a Congress. They wanted to formulate two bodies and they wanted the people to still be highly represented, which is why the House of Representatives is the way that it's structured. And then they didn't have much trust in the populace being able to come up with a really great representative. So they came up with the Electoral College to kind of protect America from whatever the populace would want. So you had the Federalist Papers that was framed and that was written, and it's something that you have definitely have probably have read. If not, you haven't read, you should read one day in life for you to have an understanding as to some of the common threats and reasons behind it. So the Federalist Papers came out under the title Publius, and then you had the Anti-Federalist Papers that came out, and they were titled under Brutus. And even though there are more Anti Federalist papers than there were Federalist papers, obviously the Anti Federalist papers lost. But they gained one thing, and that was the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is something that they compromised on in order, which is they were much more for individual state rights and for individual rights. And so they compromised with our now 10 First Amendments, which is titled the Bill of Rights. So we have to be thankful for the Anti-Federalists participating in that as well. So what exactly is federalism? Federalism is this notion of um, different branches of government actually working together. So you actually have the process of, it's not just branches, but it's different levels of government. So we're not talking about Congress, the legislative branch. We're not talking about the three major branches, which is the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive. One thing that should remember is that the Constitution, Article 1, is divided into the Article 1 it is divided as an order of importance. So Article 1 is more important, which is Congress. Article 2 is second important, which is the President. Article 3 is third in importance, which is the judiciary. The first importance is because it is a representation of the people. So the people have their rights vested in their representative. So it's the people but of the government by the government, which is our democratic portion. The second one is our representative portion. So we're in a representative democracy, which is also known as a republic democracy. You can do either one. They're interchangeable words. And then the third one is the judiciary, which is supposed to be a check of balance. I do want you to take a notion here. Let's pause for a second. There are some people who, depending on your textbook, there will be a fourth branch of government. The fourth branch is what they would consider federal bureaucracy, which is actually governed by the president. So some textbooks don't do that. Or the fourth branch of democracy would be the press. The importance of the press. Okay. So our country has not been a direct democracy, and there's only a few aspects that we actually have direct democracy. California actually does have a form of direct democracy. We can amend the Constitution by 60% of the population, 66%, sorry, of the population actually voting for a bill, and we can actually amend the Constitution, which is one of the only places in the country that allows them to do so. And some of our compromises at the Constitutional Convention is really important to take note because they are the ones that help frame how our actual Constitution is written. Why is it that we have a two groups, the House and the Senate? So just look more into that as you see fit. Finally, I think that the social contract is something that I really sometimes like for everyone to read by John Rousseau, is because a constitutional contract is a social contract, is really important. Is because what he's stating is that you were born into a social contract. Wherever you're born, you have made a commitment to that country, and also that country made a commitment to you. You made a commitment to be a good citizen, to follow the rules, and the country itself said, if you follow the rules, we'll do good by you by, making sure that you're protected, things are fair, just. And if either one of you break the rules, then the other is held responsible to making it right by the so if I as a citizen break the rules, then the government has the right to put me in jail, has the right to sue me, has the right to reprimand me in whatever way seems fit that's deemed appropriate for my cause. And I say deemed appropriate because that would be a constitution, a Bill of Rights issue. If it's not appropriate, then the action will be corrected to make it appropriate. Or to make it appropriate because it would violate my constitutional rights if it's not appropriate. However, if the society breaks the rules, and an example of this would be for Rousseau, he said, not Rousseau, sorry, but for some, they said slavery was a violation of the social contract. Individual civil rights have a constitutional contract, have a violation of the contract. But it has to be a societal problem. It's not just infringing upon one individual, but a societal problem has to deal with a conflict. So it would be such as, like I said, a civil rights violation. So it would be maybe some of the aspects of the civil rights movement, such as non-voting for women when they were not allowed to vote. All of these things is a violation of the social contract. And according to Rousseau, it meant that they had to be corrected. How do you correct this? Is that the individual members of society has the absolute right to correct the problem. And how do you correct it would be through discussion, maybe, legislation, possibly. You can protest. You can go to the media. Extreme cases, it would be a war, civil war, would be a correction to that, a correction to it. But it has to be within reasonable action. So you have to go through the level of reasonable action through the channels in which to absolutely hold your state, capital S, your country, held in response to its own violation. It's an interesting book. You should check it out. Social Contract by Rousseau. Okay, so make sure that you read all of the other lectures, but this is just a snippet of a lecture to give you a good idea of what to look for as you do your other reading and also your other PowerPoints.